Hi everyone and welcome to your SATS revision webinar. Let me just share my screen. Okay, Nikki, can you just let me know? Can you see that okay?
Oh, good.
Fantastic. Okay. Before we start though, we'd like to just do a very quick poll of finding out what our audience is really. Are you an educator, a parent or carer? Are you both, or are you something else? Just let us know. And while you're doing that, I'll just let you know what we're going to talk about today. We will have an overview of SATS and why it's important to revise. We'll go through the forgetting curve as well. About thinking about metacognition. And metacognition is thinking about thinking. And we'll go through why that's important to demonstrate to our young people. Revision can be fun, and what I'm going to do is show you some practical ideas of how you can engage your children with that overlearning aspect of things for the SATs. And then we'll go through some very basic question techniques for English and maths before we talk about how the BDA can help, which Nikki has touched on today, but it's not just about today and today's webinar, it's about that ongoing relationship that we like to have. And if you do have any difficulties in the future, then please do get in touch with us. We have a fantastic helpline. So the results of the poll. So we've got 35% educators, 39% parents and carers, 25% of both, and just 1% of other. So that's a nice mix in our audience. We'll go through an overview of SATs. My experience is with GCSEs, not SATs in particular, but I have experience with some colleagues, some ex-colleagues of mine, and I've got a friend who is a deputy head and so on. And so what we need to do is to have an overview of SATs and what they are. So they are standard assessment tests. Now, whatever your opinion is for SATs, they are compulsory for all state schools. Independent schools can choose whether they take part in them or not. So standard assessment tests are administered by primary schools in England to children in year 2 and year 6 to check their educational progress. And they are one of the markers used by the government and parents as well to assess the quality of education in all the schools. And tests are designed to determine if children are on track to meet that expected standard in English and maths set out by the government. But remember though, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Remember though that the higher results will depend on the cohort as well. There will be some year groups that will be more able than others. And so if you are looking at SATS results, if there is a school with a dip, you have to take that into consideration. It might not be the quality of the education, it might be the cohort that the results are dependent on. And so this webinar is going to talk mostly on Key Stage 2 SATs. However, many of these kind of revision techniques that I'll be talking about can be adapted for Key Stage 1 children as well. So for Key Stage 1, there is a reading paper 1, there's a reading paper 2. They are 30 minutes and 40 minutes. There is a maths paper 1, which is arithmetic, which takes about 20 minutes. And then the maths paper 2, which is about reasoning, which takes about 35 minutes. The tests of Key Stage 2, as you can see, there's a number of them. So you've got your reading paper, you've got your spelling, punctuation and grammar paper 1 and 2. Then you have writing, which is assessed by continuous teacher assessment. Then you have maths paper 1, which is your arithmetic. 2 and 3 is reasoning. And sciences is assessed by continuous teacher assessment again. When we talk about access arrangements, it's about giving pupils the equal opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge. They're certainly not used and provided to give anybody an advantage. And so it's helping them to level the playing field and to demonstrate their knowledge where otherwise they would be put at a disadvantage. And the kind of children that might fall into the category of needing access arrangements, those with an education, health and care plan. It might be for those who the provision is being made in school using the SEN support system. So if they get them anyway, if it's that their normal way of working in the classroom, then they will be able to have that adaptation for the SATS as well. For those whose learning difficulty or a disability significantly affects their ability to access the tests, and that might be if you have a visual impairment as well, for example. Those who have behavioural, emotional or social difficulties, it might be that they need a quiet room, space to walk around when they're doing their thinking for their answers, that kind of thing. Or anybody that has any difficulty with reading, writing, concentrating, developing that processing information as well. So they may need extra time because they need that extra thinking time. It may be that they have a hearing impairment or a visual impairment or English as an additional language. And so all of these, if your child falls into any of these categories, then they may be entitled to the access arrangements. And of course, due to the diversity of pupils' needs, the guidance doesn't list every circumstance where it might be appropriate to use access arrangements. And pupils should only take the test if they are in a fit and physical and mental state. Some pupils might not be able to access the test despite the provision of additional arrangements that is given to them as well. Those adults that are administering the tests to pupils who need access arrangements must not be a relative or a carer or a guardian of the pupil either. Those that are providing support as an access arrangement, which means either a scribe or a reader or a translator, or transcribing, again, mustn't be a relative, or a carer, or a guardian of the pupil. Schools must ensure that they have documentation available to demonstrate that their pupil is eligible for access arrangements as well. It's not something that they can just decide on the morning of the exam. And evidence will vary according to the type of support that they have, and it might include things like notes that are recorded in teaching plans or individual pupil support plans or a pupil's classwork. So it is important to revise, and sometimes we have to mask the fact that we are revising by creating fun revision activities. But it is really important to be able to keep jogging that memory and that overlearning facility that you need to give to our children. So this is the forgetting curve. This was pioneered by somebody called Herman Ebbinghaus in 1885. And he discovered that without that frequent review of that information we're trying to remember, we will forget half of what we learned within the hour. And I'm sure every child has come home and you said to them, what have you done today? And they said, I don't know, can't remember. And so that's what we need to do, is to try and keep jogging the memories of the crucial important information that they need to remember for their SATS tests. And so what he noticed was that the memory recall was 100% when you first learn it. But then over time, as you can see, the amount of recall really reduces. And so what we need to do instead is to keep, if that's the first time that they've learned something, the next time that they learn it, they will remember a little bit more. The third time that they'll remember a little bit more, and so on, until that repetition is so that they will be able to remember it so well that they can teach somebody else. So it's really important to have those regular reviews to make sure that less and less is forgotten, embedding that into their long-term memory. With dyslexics as well, using some kind of multisensory way of remembering is really, really needed, because we need to hook it onto that long-term memory. What we need to do is to trigger the parts of the brain that may not be active. So by using that multisensory way of learning and going through these revision techniques will really help them to remember. And so it's important to have your learners understand about metacognition and have a positive mindset. And I know that that is easier said than done in some occasions. However, if it is the norm, they will buy into it a lot easier if they see it as ongoing all day, every day, and it's not just on the build up to SATS. And so it's metacognition is thinking about thinking, and it's being conscious of how they are learning. And it's never too early, really, to encourage children to understand their own metacognition. It's important to talk about what they know before they are learning something new, what they are learning during the lesson, and how they know it, and after the learning as well. And especially if you're giving them tasks and they are coming to the incorrect answer, it's about unpicking it with that individual to say, okay, how did we get to this incorrect answer? What can we do to change it? What can we do to make you remember it for next time? And it's about understanding and unpicking it together to give that support as well. Now, this is a letter that my friend gives to her children in year 6, and this is the same ones that my children received in when they were in year 6, and it's really, really true. And children need to understand that even if they have some challenges with the test, whether it's literacy or numeracy or something else, it doesn't test their other abilities and strengths, and it doesn't measure how successful they can be when they grow up. And I'll read this to you, and I think it's really important to give this message to our young people. So it says, next week, you will sit your SATS test for maths, reading, spelling, grammar, and punctuation. We know how hard you have worked, but there is something very important you should know. The SATS test does not assess all of what makes each one of you special and unique. The people who create these tests and score them do not know each of you the way that we do, and certainly not in the way that your families do. They do not know that some of you love to sing or draw. They have not seen your natural talent for dancing or playing a musical instrument. They have not known that your friends can count on you to be there for them, that your laughter can brighten the darkest day, or that your face turns red when you feel shy. They do not know that you participate in sport, wonder about the future, or sometimes help your little brother or sister after school. They do not know that you are kind, trustworthy, and thoughtful, and that every day you try to be your very best. The scores you will get from the test will tell you something, but they will not tell you everything. There are many ways of being smart. You are smart. So while you're preparing for the test, in the midst of it all, remember there is no way to test all of the amazing and awesome things that make you, you. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all, by Aristotle. And it's a really important message that yes, they can work really hard, and yes, they are being assessed for the level of education and the quality of the education. But it's important as well to give that message to our young people that the things that it can't measure, and that's all of the things that has been put into that letter. And so it's not to say that they don't matter. They do. regardless of what your opinion is. But there's other things as well that is important in life, and it's being kind and courteous and helpful and everything else that goes with that. So if you want to, you will get a copy of this on the slides, but if you wanted to take a screenshot of that, then please do so and use it and model it and maybe tweak it if you need to for our young people, because what we need to remember is to remove that pressure. What we don't want them to do is their mental health to suffer because of the pressure that they feel that they're under. And the growth mindset as well is also very important. You know, the power of not yet. If you've ever read Carol Dweck's books, then she uses the phrase "not yet." You're not wrong. You've just not got it yet, and that gives the hope that yes, they will be able to achieve that at some point. It might not be right there and then. There might be some growing, and you have to make mistakes to be able to learn. And it's that growth mindset really that is really important to instill into our young people. Instead of putting a cross for an incorrect answer for maths, for example, right, not yet, not quite got there yet. So it gives them that hope that they will be able to achieve that. And then as we go through, it's important to recognize which of our individuals have a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and to be able for them to recognize it themselves so that they will be able to change if they do have a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. And of course, it's about the language that you use. So, you might want to say things like, well, you couldn't do that yesterday, but now you can. I can see the improvements, even if you can't. You put so much effort into that. Well done, because it's not just about the end result, it's about the effort that they put in. And if you remember with dyslexics, they really do, they're very good at masking and how much hard work goes into the work. If you have somebody who is able to have that amount of the correct output, but underneath what is happening is that they are working maybe 3 hours on one worksheet and everybody else is taking half an hour. And so it's the effort as well that perhaps we need to praise, as well as the output that they have. And so it improves that self-belief, that goal achievement. And they realize that they can learn from positive or negative feedback. They need to be able to adapt it to, okay, well, I didn't get that right, but what can I do to change that? They're never too young to be able to have that growth mindset. And so throughout this stage, it's important to make sure that their health and well-being is looked after, as well as they go through these revision techniques. And so it's important as well, and especially for dyslexics, to have those breaks. It's they need to have that brain break. Everybody can maximize their ability of revision by having it into bite-sized chunks. And so it's much easier and better for them if they have bite-sized chunks, go and have a break for 10 minutes and come back and do the next thing, rather than slog it out for 3 full hours at a time and realizing that nothing has really gone in. Keep moving as well. So when you're having these quick breaks, go for a walk around the block maybe, or play with the dog, or something like that, just to get you moving and to break the brain away from the task that you were doing. And it's important to allow for joy. Include lots of treats and rewards as well if they've been able to follow a plan, for example, and enjoy that joyous moment where, I don't know, they're and the siblings are playing a game or a tickle or hide and seek or something like that. So it's important to keep the spirits up. Hydrate as well. Everybody knows that keeping hydrated can really help the brain. Celebrate the progress as well, not just after the exams, but during the course of the revision. And so It's about celebrating those. Yes, you've followed that plan. That's really good. We'll have a little mini celebration. Fueling the brain. We all know now, it's well documented, isn't it, that if we eat well and healthily, that we will fuel the brain. Things like omega-3, any kind of oily fish and things like that, and spinach and greens and vegetables and proteins and milk and everything, all the good stuff. Make sure that they have a rainbow of treats, the good stuff, all the rainbow on the plate. If they do have negative thoughts, we need to try and stop them in the tracks and explain to them, right, okay, you've got that negative thought. How are we going to turn that upside down? And have that as a technique, as a working technique throughout the class or throughout the family, to be able to stop those negative thoughts in their tracks. Because if you don't, and if you reinforce those negative thoughts, then they really are going to take root and knock the confidence. Count the sheep, make sure everybody is sleeping well. Try and get them, if they need to, have that wind down, turn off the gadgets, turn off the TV if they need to have that routine. Remember when my children were babies, we had that routine of having a nice warm bath with lots of lavender, putting them into bed, nice warm drink of milk, and they don't really have to grow out of that. It might be slightly different routine, but having that wind down time and maybe reading a story together, that's really you can really cherish that with the children when they're young. Remember to ask for help as well, and get them to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help if that's what they need. That shows as a strength that you can ask for help as well. And lean on your support network. If you do have a buddy system within the class or within the family, or it might be that there is a parents group who want to share games that they have made together, have a buddy system or a small group work. But it's really important to ensure that these 10 steps to success can really be instilled in the children at such an early age, and it's never too late to start. Yes, so believe it or not, revision can be fun. And we're going to talk about maths now. And unfortunately, Brenda is not with us, so I'm going to do my best to get through her slides. She obviously would have had a script for herself, so forgive me if I start to muddle through. And so making maths fun at Key Stage 1. So dyscalculia is not being able to make sense of numbers. And it can be quite a formal way of learning with worksheets. And very often, it can be a co-occurring difficulty with dyslexia. And so giving somebody a worksheet can be really quite intimidating and very off-putting. And so it's important that you create that positive attitude about maths from a very early age. And you don't have to have a worksheet and pen and paper to think about maths. Maths can be all around us, and we can make it really fun through different activities. And some of these can be if you are baking in the kitchen, for example, using the maths to make a cake. Look at the different maths, look at the weights and the measures, and then you might be able to say to them, okay, this is for one cake. How many grams of flour then will we need for 2 cakes? How many grams of flour will we need for 10 cakes? And how did you get to that? What do you know beforehand to be able to answer this question? Well, actually, I know my 10 times table. Well, you'll be able to do this. I know my 2 times table. Then you'll be able to work that out. And that's that metacognitive way of thinking about it. It might be looking at filling up containers, thinking about full and half full, or if you want to make it even stretch it a little bit. What is a third? And what is a quarter full? That kind of thing. If you're starting to increase the difficulty. Just having a ruler and ask them to measure lengths of things, or asking them to consider which is longer, the table or the kitchen counter, that kind of thing. And so just implementing these ideas of maths and getting used to the language of maths, like longer or shorter, with different activities. So making it as part of daily activities, and then they won't feel too intimidated by it. Looking at how much bigger daddy's shoes are than yours, that kind of thing. Playing with counters, making groups of them in numbers. So making, if you do have those concrete materials, then keep with the concrete materials if it's working for them. Make it very visual, and so that they're able to move them around. And what would happen if you took one of the groups out and then split it in half, that kind of thing. So it's about talking about the different types of maths. They may not even realize that you're doing maths because you're making it fun. Jumping backwards and forwards along a number line is goes from concrete to pictorial. Consider as well the language that you're using. So if you're talking about going up in value, then perhaps have a vertical line if that helps the child as well. And going so when you're jumping, they're jumping in fours, for example. And so making it kinesthetic, a multi-sensory way of learning. So these are really good. I can't remember what they're called now. I'll remember probably after I've finished this because I won't be under pressure then. But yes, I've used these in maths before, and they're really good visuals, and it helps them to see numbers as shapes and to be able to visualize that. So as they progress through the school, they still start to think about shapes. And I can still remember it being when I was at school, I used the Dean's blocks with the little yellow cubes and the long tens in as greens, and I could still remember those. And when I start to think about numbers, I still picture those in my head. So things like these concrete materials are really, really helpful so that not just at the time of learning, but as they move through the school as well. And then the comparison as well. So when you comparing numbers, the 2 times table and the 5 times table, they are the same. The numbers are the same. So using these as a comparison. Again, multiplication tables, using visuals and concrete materials to let them see the numbers, not just trying to imagine them in their head. If you think about that memory shelf that I've talked about previously, if the more, memory shelf, a non-dyslexic can probably hold about 8 or 10 books on the memory shelf without too much difficulty. A dyslexic may only be able to hold on to about 2 or 3. And so these visual stimulants are not quite as heavy as a book. And so they may be able to hold on to a little bit more with these visuals that they keep in their head, which is why these concrete materials and the shapes are so important. If you add stress, however, the stress is a really heavy book and it might just slide everything off. Oh, how did that happen? It might just slide everything off. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. And so it's important to help them to create these visuals in their head and keep hold of them and maybe use them and move from the concrete to the pictorial to the abstract as they go older. And again, taking groups of counters or talk about anything. And it might be how many groups of ducks on a pond, for example, and as they move around it, you start to talk about the numbers and how they shift. Sharing between different people, make sure that it's something that they are familiar with. You're not going to ask them to use something like spanners if they've never seen a spanner, for example. You would use something that they are used to seeing. And to be able to read long numbers, you really only need to be able to read a 3-digit number instead of really long and complex numbers. And maybe this is going to come in year 6, but to be able to understand about the number system is that, and that the most you need to read is a 3-digit number. So there are 300s, there are 8 tens and 1 unit, or 6 ones, I should say. So that would be 386. But you know, something like these kind of concrete materials that you can see, it can be quite hard for young children because of that 2-digit unit column is worth 20, and the single units column is worth 4. But if you split it up and explain to them with these concrete materials, it's much easier. And this is one of the lessons that I used to use when I was teaching but in secondary. And so they were using much longer numbers. And what I explained to them, that you don't actually, you do actually read the name of the comma. And so it's really important to get that comma in the correct place. So if they circle all of the 3-digit numbers, then you know that you only need to read that 3-digit number, which is the most complex. So for example, this has got 1 comma in, and that first comma is called 1,000. And so you would read it as 2,984. The next comma along is million. Yeah, and be 3,202,984. And so you would recognize that the commas need to be read out as well, and they all have names. Thinking about the vocabulary of maths as well, it's really important that you try and give them those ideas of converting these difficult vocabulary really in the maths questions, and we'll come on to a little bit about that later. And it's something that children can find really quite hard, because sometimes there is more than one word that can mean the same symbol. And so an example of that would be to have a game and have the vocabulary words and have them to sort them into the digits. So it might be an add, or a times, and an equals, and a divide, and a time, and minus. And then the words, give them the words to be able to match them to the function. Or it might be that you have a particular word that they need to remember, and you link it with some kind of etymology and understanding, you know, other different kinds of words like formula or formulate, that kind of thing, and to make those links. To understand how multiplication is just repetitive addition. And so it's okay to be able to recognize it as that, instead of having to regurgitate all of the multiplication table. And it says here we only need to know 27 facts from the 2 times table, the 3 times table, the 5 times table, and the rest of them can be made up from these core multiplication tables. So for example, we have the 5 times table here, and then we have the 5 times table here, the 2 times table, and the 2 times table. And so what we can do is we can color code these and put them together so that they can make those connections that, you know, 8 times 7 is really 5 times 5, adding on to 3 times 5, and then we've got 5 times 2 and 3 times 2, and we can add all of those together. And sometimes that, having that, if you are kind of stepping away and not doing it as a whole, sometimes that the way to segregate it is easier for our learners to be able to understand and to follow. And so we have, you know, learning multiplication squares, and this is a really good one because it's color coded as well. And so really you just really need to know the 2 times table, the 5 times table, and so on. And understanding and looking at the patterns as well. So the 5 times table is going to be a 5 and a 0 and sorry, I'll do it on the screen, the 5 and the 0, and the 5 and the 0, and the 5 and the 0, and so on and so on. The 10 times table are all zeros at the end. I'm sure you'll be able to come up with your games and ways to remember all of these things. Remember to make it a concrete game first, to be, to embed it into that long-term memory. And of course, the dividing and the multiplication are groups of families. So one is the opposite of the other. And so 8 times 6 is 48. 48 divided by 8 is going to be 6, and so on. So having all of these number families. This is something that can be used. It's a flexi table, and you can buy these from the Dyslexia Action Shop. And what you can do with these is it's made of plastic, but it's not hard plastic. So if you needed to fold it at the particular area for a times table, then you can do, and that will really help. And it helps with tracking as well, and because it'll fold on the lines. And of course, there's some fantastic resources that you can download from lots of different sites. But one that I know that I use frequently is Twinkle. And depending on what kind of level of membership you have, you can have, there is a free membership. So there's quite a lot that's already available for download for free membership. With things like sequences, it's important to be able to help your children to create some kind of strategy. And so one of the ways that I used to use is anything in particular sequence that you might need to remember. And remember, if you're doing something like science and you're observing from continuous assessment, then this might be something that might be helpful. So the stages of, I mean, this is history on the screen, but you could use this for science. The stages of a science experiment, for example, if you put them in a pictorial form and then cut it up and ask them to place it into the sequence, and it's not like a jigsaw puzzle where it's a silent activity. You would talk it all the way through. What is the first step? The next step is this, and the next step is this. And so that kind of sequencing, if you are helping them with a sequence of a particular maths question that they are struggling with, or something like a story that they need to remember in English, any of this kind of sequencing is really helpful. Remember as well, though, that they need to have a self-check. And so do 2 copies of it, cut one up, and have one as a self-check so that they can find their own errors. It's that metacognitive way of learning. So with regards to any particular things that you need to overlearn, and it might be anything to do with English or maths facts and or anything like that. This is something that I made myself. It's a Connect 4 game, but on the cards, I don't know if you can see that. I was teaching my students single words, but you could change this to anything. And each word has a coordinate. And so if they're able to, it might be a maths question, it might be a multiplication fact, anything at all that you want your learners to overlearn, you can use this for. And I just put these stickers on a cheap pack of cards. And the idea is that, they put the counters on the coordinate, and it's the first to 4 in a row. And it just creates that friendly competitiveness, really, and you might even want to have a champion, for example, or a board to who's won today and who's won tomorrow, that kind of thing. But it's just adapting things that is already there, really. And again, with snakes and ladders, the same kind of thing. You can adapt any questions that you wanted to attach to this. So every time they roll the dice, it might be that they land and complete a question. Create a killer question if you need to, so that they don't have to go down the snake at the end. That kind of thing. So it's about using your creative juices. This is downloaded from Twinkle. It can be adapted as well and edited yourself, so you can change them around. And of course, that just makes revision fun for them. This is the game called Bang that I used to use as well for that overlearning of the words that I was teaching my children. And it has 7 band cards in the full pack of whatever it is that you need them to learn. And so it might be the 12 times table, it might be all of the times tables, and you put all of the cards face down. If they pick up a card and they say it correctly, then they're able to keep that card. And so they start to gather all of these cards. But if they turn over a bang card, they have to keep the bang card and throw everything back in. And so they start to have to do those cards over and over and over again. And it creates that friendly competitiveness and that overlearning. They think that they're just playing a game, but sneakily what you're doing is having them to really it might be that they're really focusing on their times tables, for example. Again, follow me cards that you can download from a website called SEN Teacher. And if there are any particular vocabulary words, conjunctions, sentence starters, anything like that, anything that you really need to keep in their head, then you can use this. And these are editable as well. And they're just follow me cards, and you can have as many of those as you need. So this is the sorting game that I was talking about with regard to the function. So I don't know if you can see this clearly, but these are the words that one of my students was really struggling on, understanding that there is more than one word that means the same function. So this is minus, this is take away, the equal signs, it's equivalent or total or same as, and by having that sorting game, when they turn over the cards to check their answers, then they'll be able to see whether they've got them right or whether they've got them wrong, and where they need to work on. And again, science, if you've got scientific words that they need to understand, you can do this kind of sorting game to help that assessment of them. This is something that one of my students used. He kept his knowledge in his pocket, and so the things that he was struggling with particularly, then we used to put them on a key ring and put on a card, and he would carry them around with him. And he was a very, very enthusiastic student, and he would look at them at every opportunity. So if he was waiting in the dinner queue, if he was waiting outside for assembly, or if he was waiting outside to get into class or something like that, he would look and try and his very best to be able to learn these things that he was struggling with. And this one in particular was focusing what the word looks like to what the fraction looked like, and so he had a buddy as well that was really good with him, and he used to test him all the time. And so it's nice just to have that idea that they're carrying the knowledge in the pocket, and it's important to go back to that lots and lots of times for that overlearning opportunity. Scrabble letters. I used to love these Scrabble letters. My students used to love it as well. This is GCSE science, so it's a little bit above the year 6 SATS. However, if there are specific words that you need help, or if your children need help with spelling correctly, then try using this scramble activity. So for things like so for example, here we've got the word protein, and that E sound, what you could do for that is to glue those two together so that they'll be able to pick out those graphemes that should be together instead of looking at them as single sounds. And so that's one of the ways that you can do that. You can also, to help ask them to spell words that maybe common words that they're struggling with as well, or make up their own words. And it's that element of Scrabble where they can have how many numbers, can you have the biggest number scoring word. So to be able to try and hook onto that memory, a really good structure of a sentence, I've thought of this, and it's about connecting what they know to something that they have touched and felt, and that they can help them with the structure of a sentence. So, for example, every sentence needs a noun, and it might be that they have to wear a t-shirt. You can't go outside without a t-shirt, so it might be a red t-shirt. And so which part of the sentence which word in that sentence is the red t-shirt, and be silly, get a red t-shirt and put it on. To make it a little bit better, you can't go outside without a coat on. So you're making that noun much more attractive and able to go outside. So you put a coat on to keep that noun warm. You can't go outside without a pair of socks, and so a green pair of socks might be the verb because it's moving and it's a doing word. So you might want to create that, and then to finish off that sentence, the punctuation could be a gold necklace. And you know, you're not fully dressed without all of these items of clothing in that sentence. And so it's just creating that silliness of way of being able to engage the children, making those connections. And you know, if you do something like this, by the time they start writing those complex sentences, they'll be looking at where's the t-shirt, where's the coat, where's the sock, and well, I've got all my glitter and sparkles on because I've got my punctuation in there. And it's just an example, really, but you can adapt this to anything. Even like things like maths questions according to how you get dressed, for example. So I'm running out of time. So I want to go speed through these question techniques as well. So it's important to follow the instructions. Really get into the habit of reading instructions really carefully. So if it asks you to circle the clock, you need to put a circle, and it might be that you underline that key word. It might be that you write these temperatures in order, starting with the lowest. So you need to write them, keyword, you need to start with the lowest. So it's understanding what these keywords are in the sentences before you even make attempt the question. So this is an English question. So it might be look at the first paragraph. So you need to highlight the bossy verb. So you need to look at the first paragraph. So remember though, it is the first paragraph, and you have to write 2 ways of why Prior was feeling nervous. So it's recognizing those instructions, highlighting them, and even if you have to do an exercise of past papers, not writing the answers, but looking at the instructions and just highlighting what they have to do. What the important part of the test is not just the answer; it's following those instructions and recognizing what you have to do, because very often nerves might take over, the adrenaline is running, and they can become completely word blind and they don't look at those instructions. And so it might be worth doing an exercise like that. Command words as well. So the reason, you know, highlighting what the command is. So if it's a why question, it's got to have a because in the answer. And so you need to find the reason why, and those kind of things as well. Now, beware of the trick question as well. So try and highlight these to the children so that they don't, again, become word blind and trip up at these mistakes. So this is looking at, it says, look at Harriet's answer to the question. The ordinary bridge is popular with bats. What makes it such a hot spot? The Congress Avenue Bridge attracts bats to Austin, or what else attracts bats to Texas? Now, Austin is in Texas, and it tells you that in the passage. So we need to, you know, if they can see these tricks that they, you know, the question masters put up their sleeves just to see if they're tripping them up, that needs to be brought to their attention so that they don't fall with that one. So if they see that, cross that out and put Austin instead, choose one of them so that they can reread the question and make sense of it. And if you don't recognize a name, change it to someone, either your own or somebody else. So if you don't know who, have you never heard of the name of Innes, change it and put somebody like that you know of. And that just helps them to, when they're rereading the question, that word Innes isn't like freaking them out because they don't know what it is. We know it's a name because it'll be in the text. It's got a capital letter. It's a proper noun. Cross it out and make it sound like it's somebody who they will know. And teach them, don't be a donut, check your answers. You know, it's really important to have that mini break to keep an eye on the time, check the answers, but do it out of sequence. It's really important that for dyslexic learners especially, to do it out of sequence. Cover up the question, do it again if you've got time. Do you get the same answer? But if you're doing it out of sequence, it means that you're not blind to it, because if you do it all in the same sequence, you can get caught up in the adrenaline of the test and the stress of it, and you might not see your errors. So if you try and do it out of order, it might do page 3, then page 5, then page 1. But try and teach them to do it out of order so that they can see those errors. They look a little bit easier to spot. And then by the end of the revision, hopefully they're in a position to go, right, come on, bring it on, I'm ready for you. You know, and that's what I used to say to my GCSE students, you know, you've worked so hard, right? Let's get it on, and have that positivity. It's just that positivity would really, really help them. Oh, I love that. I love those little love hearts. Giving them that encouragement and to get them prepared, mentally prepared and ready for it. That doesn't matter. You're not going to beat me. I'm going to get ready and I'm going to hit it head on and get ready for you. And normally what I would do is go through how the BDA can help, but I'm going to scoot through most of it because Nikki has already mentioned a lot of it. There's just one thing I wanted to mention in particular is fundraising. I'm doing my best to try and fundraise as much as we can for an assessment bursary. You know, somebody has to pay for it at the end of the day, and sometimes school budgets don't allow, parental budgets don't allow, and very often people are not able, for lots of different reasons, that they're not able to get a diagnostic assessment. Financial shouldn't be a reason why people don't get an assessment. And so what we're trying to do at the BDA is raise as much money as we can to put into a pot so that people can apply to help. If it's not fully paid for, at least part paid for. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. I really believe that everybody should be entitled to a diagnostic assessment if they're dyslexic. So I'm going to stop now, Nikki. I know I've only given you a few minutes to allow for questions, and I do apologise, but there was a lot of information in there.
No, and it was great. Some really great tips. I loved, even I was noticing, I think one of the ones that stood out to me was the maths one, when you had options for the different words that describe in the question. So sum of equals to those, because sometimes, especially with dyslexic children, it can be the processing, can't it? So they might actually know the answers to the question, but if they can't quite decipher or break down what the question is,
yeah,
they might put the wrong answer. So it's simple things like that that actually can really help them.
Yeah.
And there was another one that I really liked. Now completely forgotten about it. Now I need more tips on memory, don't I? I can't remember. There was another one that I thought, oh no, that's a really good idea, I should try that one. Oh, I know which one it was. It was the in the questions, making, if there's a word they don't quite understand or a name that doesn't recognize, then to put it to something simpler, which, especially if you're talking about places around the world or whatever, they just might not quite understand, or it might be throwing them out. So I thought that was a lovely idea, and something I might be trying with my own kids. We do have a few questions. There's only a few questions in there, but we will try and see if we can answer them. So we've got somebody asking, should the students be allowed the access arrangements during their mocks, because their son has been told they'll need a speed of reading and writing assessment prior to SATS, but he's doing his mocks next week and he hasn't had this. Is that normal practice for the access arrangements during the mocks?
Yeah, I would imagine that they would need to be assessed. From what I can gather, the assessment is done in-house. So and it might be different for every school. I'm not sure. So forgive me if I'm wrong. From what I've learned from friends and colleagues is that the assessments for access arrangements are done in-house, and it's looking at the volume of work that they can do within a timed within a certain amount of time, that kind of thing. You need to be able to have that as your normal way of working, especially for your mocks, as well as the actual exams, the SATs, because it would be unfair to spring them onto you just before the real thing, because that's not your normal way of working. You really do need to get used to, for example, if you've got a scribe, that is a skill in itself to tell somebody what to write down and where to put the punctuation and so on. It's not an easy job. So those kind of things, I would imagine that, hopefully you get those in place for the mocks, and not just right on the last minute.
Yes, it's probably best to speak to the school and
Yeah.
get that. So I know for GCSEs, they definitely should have that all access arrangements in place prior and doing mocks,
Yeah.
shouldn't they? So I would think it's probably best for that person to reach out to the school and find out when they'll be doing something.
Yeah.
Got a few questions. I'm not sure if you're going to, because these are actually about the SATs themselves rather than revision. But do you know if they're able to use numerical and number lines, things like that in the actual exams, in the SATs?
I don't know.
No, I wasn't sure about that one either.
Because I'm not an expert in the actual SATs exams themselves, but I do know about the revision and how to help remember and to hook onto long-term memory and so on. And so that's why I've been asked to do the revision. You'd have to ask the school directly if they're able to do that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We've got someone asking, my daughter is in year 6 and has been diagnosed with dyslexia from overseas. I'm having a very hard time with support. What advice could you give? I mean, I'd say, actually, I'm going to jump in on this one. I say for this one, we do have an amazing helpline that if you wanted to talk to somebody one-on-one, maybe find out what sort of diagnosis was done and where you're trying to use it, and if and try and help get a connection with the school, do ring in or drop them an email. We have some amazing volunteers who are very good with helping with that one-on-one questions, so do please reach out to them. That goes for anybody that's joining us tonight. If you need particular support for your child or yourself even, because we deal with all ages, then do reach out to our helpline, and that's exactly what they're there for. And we have only just got a minute to go, so I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Amanda. Really some great tips, and I learn stuff every time when we do these, and it's really helpful. We do have more webinars that might be of interest. If you have older children, we're actually doing one just like this, but for GCSEs and A levels. I think that's on the 26th of March. So again, it's free. You just register, go to the events page on our website, and you'll see other webinars coming up, but that one might be quite useful. You might even want your teenager to join if you wanted to, or as always, we always send out the recording afterwards anyway, so if they just wanted to watch and get some tips afterwards, they're more than welcome. And also to say that we have lots of other webinars on our YouTube channel, so do take a look when you get a chance. There's lots of different, especially if your child is struggling with, say, times tables or spellings, there's lots of videos on our channel that actually just go into more detail, so that might help them with their revision tips as well. And just to say a massive thank you to Bruin Abbey School, who have kindly sponsored tonight. If anybody would like any information about Bruin Abbey, we can send that in the follow-up emails after tonight's webinar. So I think we're going to have to, it's 8 o'clock on the dot, so thank you so much, Amanda. It was a great session, and we look forward to seeing everybody again soon, hopefully. Yeah. Take care. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your evening, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.